Hey, welcome to the Podpage monthly meetup. I'm Dave Jackson, head of podcasting here at Podpage, and joining me is the one and only Alex Sanfilippo. How are you, buddy?
Dave, I'm doing great, man. Glad to be here and love what you guys are doing at Podpage. You guys do some super high quality work, so it's an honor to be here today.
Yeah, before we let Alex loose, of course, there's always just a hint of housekeeping, just some things. For those of you that are into Podpage, we're just going to update you on just a couple little things that are going on. And that includes, first of all, if you didn't know there was an affiliate program, there's an affiliate program. And it's super simple. You go over to podpage.com/affiliates and you can sign up there. And if you refer people to Podpage and they buy, hey, you earn money. Isn't that fun? And then if you're like, boy, I wish there were some graphics and stuff to go with this. Well, there is. It's over at mediakit.podpage.com. We've got all our logos and our colors and all sorts of fun stuff over there. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up, when you're in Podpage, if you go down and click on the design tab, if you're a yearly elite member of Podpage, we are now offering what Brendan is calling free design polish, where he'll go in and kind of look at your artwork and just add some polish to your website to kind of make sure your brand is in line with what's going on. And of course, you can go in and say, no, thank you, I don't want that. And then the other thing we wanted to let people know, again, if you're on the elite plan, is you can get podcast coaching. If you go to the help menu, you'll see where there's podcast coaching in the bottom left-hand corner. But before we turn him loose here, you're about to hear the one and only Alex Sanfilippo, primarily known as Podmatch, but he also has Pot Lottery, and he's got some education resources going on. But here's the cool thing about Alex is he's different. And what do I mean by that? He's not like other people. And that the fact that I have heard of him, and he's confirmed this, that if you're using Podmatch in a way that is not good for Podmatch, even though you're paying him money, he will kick you out. If you do things that just, he will, like, who kicks out people that are giving you money? Alex does. And then if you're using Podmatch, he has an affiliate program. And if you use it enough, you can actually earn money using his product. And he's just a super generous guy. And one of the great things about every podcaster, or in this case, because Alex is a podcaster as well, but at the heart of it is a servant. And that's really, Alex is a guy that serves, he knows who his audience is and he serves them. And so we are super happy to have Alex here today. Buddy, thanks for coming on to our meetup here.
Dave, thanks again, man. I really appreciate it. You call me different. I didn't know where that was going to go. I mean, because so for everyone who's like, okay, do these guys actually know each other? We've hung out at, I don't know how many events now. Yeah. It goes back years. And so when Dave says he's different, I'm like, where
are we going?
But, yeah. I really appreciate the kind words, man. And for me, just so everyone knows, like Dave is really who I learned podcasting from. He's been in it longer than I have, and I've just been kind of following a lot of the standards that he has created, or just the way you carry yourself, man. Like from day one, I was like, that's the type of person I want to model and follow. So I just thank you for paving the way for a guy like me, man. It means a lot.
Well, thanks, man. And there are so many different ways we could go with you here. But I thought we would start off. What is the name of the survey? Because you made this really big survey, and it kind of goes over what podcasters are doing. And I believe the main kind of motivation was, we both get a little sad when we hear that most podcasters make it to maybe episode 7 and then they quit. And so you were kind of like, well, let's figure out what's going on. And what was the name of that? What was the name of it? Was it a survey? What was the name of it?
Yeah. So originally PodScore, and that URL is still there. It's funny, you're the only person ever interviewed me about that. Like I came on School of Podcasting, which I'd encourage everyone, that episode's like really worth listening to. But we like broke down like the 10 key factors, because I talked to 1,600 podcasters, which I will now admit was just too many, way too many. But like I didn't have a lot going on. I just started Podmatch, and so I had the time, and I loved meeting people. So and they were quick calls. Some of them were 5-10 minutes, but just to figure out like, why did you quit, or why have you not quit, was also kind of what was coming up. So I talked to both sides to kind of just get some perspective, and I just documented every single call and came up with 10 things based off of, and I just kind of rank them in order. So yeah, that was the whole idea behind it. So PodScore now is just the quiz side of it is quiz. Never mind. I don't know off the top of my head. Quiz.podmatch.com.
There you go.
Hosts. That's it. Quiz.podmatch.com/host. It's all totally free if somebody wants to go through it and kind of get an idea of how you align with what the feedback was that we got. So it's like very data driven type of quiz. I think it's a lot of fun as well. It gives you like a podcaster personality and stuff. So kind of cool project.
Nice. Do you remember like maybe something that came out of that really surprised you?
Yeah. The biggest thing. So like the number one contributing factor to your success as a podcaster is self-discipline. And I totally got that. Totally. Like that was kind of obvious, right? Like you have to be committed. You have to stick with it. You have to be consistently devoted just to making it happen, right? Persistence is probably a good way to say it. So like I knew that one. What really shocked me was the number two. So like that was number one. I don't like over 1,000 podcasters said that was like their top factor. I was like, it makes sense. You gotta have some self-discipline. But number two is self-care. And like that really, I just me naturally, for anyone who doesn't know me, like I tend to be more on the workaholic side. That's why I talk to 1,600 podcasters, right? Like I tend to like by my default, I'll be a little bit more out of balance. And so for me, like hearing that self-care was the number two thing, I remember like thinking the data was flawed. So like I started going back to some like recordings and stuff. I'm like, they must not have said that. I must have done that wrong. But no, the reality is people were saying that self-care mattered, which was maintaining a proper balance between podcasting and all other forms of their life, right? Like everything else, and not letting it keep them up 24/7 or skipping too much sleep to edit an episode. Granted, most people admit they've done that from time to time, right? I think we've all been there.
Guilty.
But that really shocked me to hear that self-care was so like the number two contributing factor to success as a podcaster, because burnout is real. So it makes sense now that I'm on the other side of it.
Yeah, I always say you have if you picture it like a stool with three legs, one leg is your attitude. The second leg is your actual physical health. And then the third one is your support system. So the people around you. And if you don't have three legs, the stool falls over. So when you do I'll sleep when I'm dead. Okay, great. There goes your physical health and you fall over. And if you don't pay attention to your spouse, your kids, or whatever you got going in your house, well, then that leg falls over. And what happens with that one, especially if you ignore your family, then they start complaining and there goes your attitude and it falls over even quicker because now you only got one leg left and that's no good. So it's hard to keep that going. It's surprising, but not surprising because it's not easy to do, especially for the new podcaster.
What I had to do, I need to get my wife's help. So like, and the way she did that is my computer, the one I'm using right now, has a screen time password that I don't have access to it. And at 6 p.m. it kicks me off. That's when I've like committed to stopping work, and it will shut me off. And unless she walks in and types in her password, I'm done working. So like you should see me most days, Dave, the last 10 minutes a day, I'm like, hurry up. Like just typing super fast, like send it, snooze this till tomorrow. And I'm like, whew, I'm locked out with like 10 seconds left every day, it feels like, right? But I had to do that to get the proper balance. Is I had to build like a very extreme like line in the sand, so to speak. So it's worked really well for me though, because I show up much better than I do if I work 15 hours a day.
Yeah, that's one of those where it's a strength to know what your weaknesses are. It sounds weird because we all have weaknesses, but when you know what they are, then you can do what you did, which is come up with a plan. Like, okay, I'm going to try to not do this, but I know I'm the same way. There are times that I've looked up on, especially on a weekend, and it's, 2:30 in the morning, and I'm like, oh, I just was in the zone, and, creativity juices are flowing, and, that's not really good. It's like, okay, well, I guess I'll sleep in, which never happens. And, then you're off to the races. So anything else from that study that jumped out at you?
Yeah, I think that the one that I didn't agree with, again, like it was all data. So like I'm just, I personally didn't agree with it, but the data spoke. And so the data is right. But if I jump down, so that was number one and number two, if we jump down to I'm looking at it right now, make sure I get the number right here. Number 8, and it was to seek out listener feedback to improve the show. And so that was like the number 8 contributing factor and that was pretty much exclusively people that were still podcasting saying that really mattered. To me, I think that should be way higher than number 8. And I voiced that on all those calls. Be like, oh, well, you get all these other things right. It just kind of falls into place. And I guess I personally didn't agree with that. To me, that should be much higher, because I think that if you want results faster from podcasting, like if you want to get moving the right lane and you want to make things happen quicker, then I think that should be higher. And the best example I can give is myself. to me, it took me 100 episodes to get any real meaningful results from my podcast. And that's because I started talking to people. I started shortening my episodes because people said they were too long. I started learning to communicate better. But when I say communicate better, it was communicate more toward the person who's actually listening, because I started knowing who they were. So that really stood out to me. Is I thought it was too low on the list. And I think that it's just not on podcasters' radar for some reason to talk to their listeners. And listen, I get they can be tough, but like if they're commenting on social media, if they're emailing you, if you're getting messages, if someone's reaching out in any possible way, getting on just a 5-minute call with them, you can learn so much. Or if that's just not happening and you go to a store or a coffee shop and there's someone there that you're like, man, that's exactly who I want to have listen to my podcast, just strike up a conversation. See if you can kind of get their vibe a little bit. To me, that just expedites all the results from podcasting. And Dave, I don't know what your perspective has been. You've been in this for a long time. So I'm just curious to see if you agree or disagree with that.
Well, the thing that always kind of makes me scratch my head, and sometimes I wonder, is it that podcasters really don't want feedback? Because since we're on the Podpage, monthly meetup, if you go into Podpage, it's super simple. If you go under Connect, there's an audience survey based on, because it's sitting here on my desk, the book, The Audience is Listening. Have you read this book yet, Alex, by Tom Webster?
Incredible book.
It's, I always joke, he should have called it Your Baby is Ugly, because that's kind of what he's hinting at.
That's what it's about. Yeah.
But it's all about, he had all these great questions. And so when Brendan said, we're going to build a survey, I'm like, oh man, we got to see if we can use Tom's questions. And he was nice enough. He's like, hey, any chance you could put a link to my book next to the survey? I'm like, yes, we can. He's like, well, then, yes, you can use my questions. And it's interesting that, yes, people are using it, but there are times when somebody's like, hey, do you know anything about, growing my audience? And I'll be like, well, what did your survey say? And they're like, survey. And I'm like, oh, and it's there, it's easy to use. But I think this is my hypothesis. Maybe you got some insight from your survey, but I always wonder sometimes if we're afraid, like it's better to be, how's that go? It's better to be thought smart than open your mouth and remove all doubt, right? You're dumb or whatever. But I'm like, yeah, but on the other hand, sometimes to make a point, I'll take podcasting out and like, what if this was a restaurant? Or what if this was a musician? Or what if this was, whatever? Like, wouldn't you want them to taste your food first and go, how's that? And if I remember once there's a favorite Italian restaurant I go to here in Akron, and somebody forgot to put the salt in the bread. And I love their bread. And so it comes, I slap it on some butter and I take a big old bite and I'm just like, ugh. And it's like, it was really easy. I said, I called the waitress over and I go, there's something wrong with this. And so she took another piece out, took a bite. She's like, ooh, there's no salt in this. And so she went back to the kitchen and came out with another little basket, and the problem was fixed. And so when you give people feedback, they can fix it. It's like you said, people are saying, this show's a little long. And you went, oh, okay, I can shorten it. So for me, it's a head scratcher. Do you have any insights as to maybe why people wouldn't do a survey?
Well, I had never really thought about this, because for me, I guess sometimes I get too stuck in my head. Maybe I'm not empathetic enough, but I never thought that someone wouldn't want feedback. Why would you not want to improve? But that can hurt. You're right. Like you said, it's calling your baby ugly, more or less. And so many people who probably listening and watching this are like, well, I just wouldn't have said anything at a restaurant even, right? So people on the other side also, I don't know. It's just, it's an uncomfortable situation that you're putting yourself in a room to get hurt, more or less. And so I've never given it much thought, but like now that I'm thinking about it, maybe people just aren't ready for that. And if I think back to when I started getting that feedback, especially at first, it did hurt. Like I'll be real, like it was uncomfortable, but I mean, what growth isn't? Like if you go to the gym and you're never sore, like maybe you're not doing enough, right? Like there's got to be some pain involved in it. And it doesn't have to all feel, I mean, it feels personal, but it doesn't have to actually be taken that way. You're improving a product for somebody, right? I doubt the waitress was offended that you called her bread not good, right? Like,
no, she's like, oh, wait, hold on. I can fix this. Yeah. And that's really it. I know when I do audits of people, it's always like, oh, I really like this part. I really like this part. In the last one I just did, they had a volume issue where anytime they played an intro or an outro or a clip of anything, your head just got blasted off. And I said, okay. I said, when I have to grab the volume knob I go, that's like big red flag. I go, that's the bad news. I go, the good news is, let me introduce you to my friend Auphonic. You know what I mean? I'm like, here, run it through this and you're good to go. So, you know, I laugh because especially we don't see our own warts, for lack of a better phrase. The church I go to has been using a logo. We did fix this, but for about 4 years, we had a logo with a typo in it and nobody caught it. Like, you know, 30, 50 people go to this church. We're like, hey, here's the new logo. Somebody said, hey, Talmadge has 2 L's, you know, and like, wait, what? And like, so we're way too close to see our own stuff because we see it every day. And that's why you need that. I had a typo at the School of Podcasting. Member Kim Newlove does the pharmacist's voice, and she goes, Dave, do you know you have a typo? And I'm like, oh, here we go again, not again. I go, which show? And she goes, no, the School of Podcasting. And I go, oh, okay, which episode? She's like, no, the School of Podcast. I go, what do you mean? And there it was, School of Podcasting, plan, launch, grow, and monetize. I left out an E. And I was like, oh, thank you so much. She goes, well, I didn't want to like, I'm like, no. Like if I ever have spinach in my teeth, let me know I have spinach in my teeth. I go, I will fix that. So it's not the end of the world if somebody gives you some constructive feedback. It's just it's an opportunity to make your show better. So yeah, absolutely.
I think that it's something that us as podcasters can do as well to also make our listeners, like if we're talking to them, they don't want to break your heart. They don't want to call your baby ugly. Usually it's uncomfortable for anyone to do. If you're going to ask questions, I know the survey does a really good job at this. So use that first and foremost, like check that out. Podpage has got you hooked up there. If you're talking to someone in conversation, though, remove yourself from the equation. This is the best thing you can do. Don't say, what do you not like about my podcast? Nobody wants to answer that. Like that is an uncomfortable situation. Everyone's just gonna say, oh no, it's great. It's good. The way that I've positioned it that worked for me is I finally started saying, hey, let's think about future listeners. What can we do to make it better for them? And now they don't feel like they're going to break your heart. You just pulled out your emotions from it. And they're like, oh, well, if we shorten a little bit, I bet it'd be even better. And you're not gonna be like, got you. You don't like my show, right? Like, it's just like, okay, that's good feedback. I can do something with that. But removing ourselves from how we ask the question helps other people feel comfortable to give us real feedback. And again, the whole reason I think we're talking about this, Dave, is because if you get this right, like it'll streamline how successful your show gets because you're actually implementing in real time and you're not waiting years for someone random to step up and be like, hey, you have a typo, right? Like it gives you that permission from day one if you go seeking it.
Yeah, if you ever have the courage, I've gone to events and I'll say, somebody will come say, oh, I listened to your show. And I'll be like, oh, thank you so much. Like, what do you like about it? And they'll say, oh, well, I always learn something and you're funny or whatever. And I'm like, great. What do you wish I would change? And it's interesting because they're like, I wouldn't change anything. And I won't say anything. I just leave this awkward pause. And sometimes I'll have my phone out or if I have a pad and pencil, like my body language is like, I'm waiting for you to say something. And sometimes if you leave that awkward pause enough, they will say, well, the thing you did with your cat, that was, I don't know, wasn't my favorite thing. And I'm like, okay, cool. Anything else? And once they see that you're not in a ball crying on the floor because you gave one note, then you're good to go. And just also realize there may be times when I remember once I do a live kind of call-in show on Saturday with Jim Cullison, and somebody gave us like a page and a half of notes that were all great notes, except they had nothing to do with our show. It was like, you should bring in guests and ask them this and do this. And it was like, okay, but I don't know if you know, it's called Ask the Podcast Coach. And this has nothing about asking a podcast coach. And so we said, thank you very much for the feedback. We'll consider it and all, but there's a name for that person. And it's called not your target audience, like, and not in alignment with your brand. I know over the years you've had different brands and you've kind of merged them all, or can you kind of talk about that? How the pod match and the pod lottery and the pod here, pod there, everywhere a pod, like how has that kind of grown over the years?
I got 2 quick comments. One, did you get any feedback on your Jesus episode? I really liked it personally. Did you get any feedback on that one? Just curious.
I had people, they were like, that was pretty funny.
I thought it was great.
And it was a cool way. I should know this. I want to say it was episode 900.
Yes.
And I interviewed Jesus just because this is just a thing I like to do. I like to go right to the line and just not so much push somebody's buttons, but just graze the button just to see what happens.
I loved it. I was on a walk and everyone who walked, I was like laughing and people must have just thought it was crazy. Like, oh, let's cross the street when this guy's walking past us. The other thing I want to mention real quick is discernment matters. So to your point, if you all would have gone and changed the whole show, which wouldn't have made any sense. Like that wouldn't have been good. One time I had one person I got on a call with who said, I wish your episodes were double the time they are because I have a 2-hour commute. If I would have taken that feedback, I would have been doing a disservice to everyone else. As a host, we have to have the discernment to know this has merit, this doesn't. So, so to your point, actually, it's a great segue into talking about like going from all the brands down to just Podmatch. I listened to too many voices, and I got feedback, or I guess maybe coaching from someone I didn't ask for coaching from, but was really well known and was like, hey, look at Alphabet and Meta. You know, Alphabet owns Google and thousands of companies. Meta owns Facebook and Instagram and thousands of or hundreds of companies, right? Like that's how you need to be able to brand. And I kind of took that to heart, and I was listening. Everyone had these different ideas for what we should do. And I will now just say this was a mistake. And I've posted about it on social media multiple times that like spreading myself that thin was really not a good decision. So we went from like Podmatch, which is still to this day the main thing, to having, I think it was 10 or 11, maybe it was 10 other things. And the day I realized it was wrong, Dave, is I was blind to it first off. People were telling me that this doesn't make sense. And I just kind of ignored it. I'm like, nope, this is the right way to do it. I know it's the right way to do it. I was actually at Podfest. This is going back a couple years now. And somebody just raised their hand. It was like a round table type of thing. Like, hey, I just have one question. What do you do? Because I'm super confused. And I was like, I run Podmatch and some other companies. Like, yeah, I know, but why do you have all these? Like, what are they, right? And the whole table like nodded in agreement. I was like, oh man, I've made a real mistake here. And since then, like again, posted on social media, and we've been one at a time bringing things into Podmatch or just removing it if it just doesn't make sense and it doesn't actually help. I was, again, listening to too many voices, taking feedback from every direction, not having discernment, just being like, people want it, do it. Even if it's just one person, nothing against that one person. Most people just love to throw ideas out there. They don't actually want it. They want to have the idea. And then you're like, here it is. Like, oh, cool. Someone will love that. Right. It's like, wait, what? So I've learned the hard way to hone everything back in. And you referenced at the beginning, I have Podmatch and Pod Lottery. That this is inside information, but we're in the process right now of bringing Pod Lottery into Podmatch and just making it all one thing. And so it'll just be an extension of that, like freely included, just part of the service. And then that will literally be the only domain, one domain to rule them all, right? Since doing this, though, I can tell you, our company has grown much faster, reputation has improved much faster, and no one has questions to what we do. People know immediately, oh, this is what you do. It's very clear now. And getting to this point has been really tough. I've definitely struggled. This was probably like the hardest professional lesson I've had to learn.
Yeah, it's interesting when you learn a lesson, especially kind of in public. But in the end, I don't know did anybody give you any flack? They're like, what do you mean you're combining these? They just go, oh, okay. I would think that would be my response. But have you gotten any flack from merging together?
No, actually not once. We've actually had the opposite. People saying, oh, thank you. Like I used to have 2 logins with you guys. Now I have 1, right? And so, not once has somebody like said, oh, I wish that you all would have kept this separate. Like it just hasn't come up at all. So confirmation, right? That we're heading the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to talk in a bit about your network that you're putting together. But I thought before we get there, we said Podmatch, 7 times now. One of my favorite services when it comes to, being a guest and finding guests. Any best practices when it comes to like, hey, I've heard it over and over and over. One of the best ways to grow your show is to be on other people's podcasts because we know those people have people that listen to podcasts. So what is kind of a best practice for, putting together a profile on Podmatch?
Yeah. I love talking about this. And what you just said is key. Like the one universal fact about a podcast listener is that they listen to podcasts, right? So if they're listening to another show, they might like to listen to yours as well. And so I think guesting on other shows is a great way to be able to grow your own. Making a profile to me on Podmatch, or even if you're not using Podmatch, like that's fine. Like if you have like a PDF type of thing, some sort of one sheet, I think it's super important to have that. And the reason I say that I think it's important to have that, or even if it's a web page, like have something, is because you don't want to include all that when you're doing your outreach. Like if I'm gonna email Dave and say, Dave, I'd love to be on School of Podcasting, I don't want to copy paste 15 years of my experience and like all these things in there, because now Dave's like, what is going on here, right? Like it's best to be able to link out to that. So when you go to create a profile, first and foremost, I'm just saying have one. Doesn't matter where it is. But I think some things that matter are, what is a host going to want? If you're hearing this and you're a host, you're going to want some options of pictures probably, right? At least 1 or 2 that are higher definition and not like half of someone's face or anything like that, right? Have some pictures that like, okay, I can build a some people, Dave, you were laughing way too hard at that. You've seen it, huh?
I've seen that. Yeah.
I had somebody want to be on my show, and I asked them, like, do you have any pictures? Because they did have a Podmatch profile, but it was like just the center of their face. Like they zoomed in so far, you couldn't see the bottom of their chin. You couldn't see the top of their head. Yeah. I was like, you have any like zoomed out pictures? I'm like, nope, this is my only one. I'm like, you think about taking any more? Nope, this is my only picture. I'm like, well, how old is it? And why is it not a full picture? Like, what was going on the rest of it?
Yeah.
I feel like I couldn't use it if I'm being real. I'm not trying to be rude. It's just like, as a host, you're like, well, I want to create some sort of assets, and I don't feel I can get anything from this. So go ahead. You had something on that?
No, it just, yeah. And I always love the ones where they've like background removal today is way different than background removal 3 or 4 years ago, where it just, you end up with this weird, you were, I don't know, next to a brick building. So you end up with like this brown halo where it didn't quite do that well. So be careful if you have that picture and you did the background removal 4 years ago, go back, find the original one and do it using today's technology. Cause yeah, I've seen some bad, if your brand is made with crayon, that's not a good sign unless you're some sort of kids thing. We don't want that to be the first impression.
Right. And that's a good way to say it's the first impression. Something I tried as at a recommendation of a friend is he's like, hey, take some pictures that have like blank space on the side and stuff like that and just see what happens. And I regularly have hosts be like, oh, I made more assets for your episode, like repurposed content because you had so many easy pictures I could use. So I just use a bunch of them. I'm like, oh, well, that's a win. Like I didn't need that, didn't ask for it. So anyway, to my point, I think it's just important. And like you said, first impressions matter. It gives a face to the name if it's coming through email or through Podmatch, wherever it's coming from. Beyond that, I think it's important to give some background, like have like a bio section, maybe not even just a bio, but like also like an introduction. Something that you're like, okay, this is for the host to read. Something really short. It's just like, hey, this is 2 or 3 sentences about me. Along with this, and I don't mean to power through this, but I think that we're talking about like how to reach out, I think would be really important to talk about. So I want to get through this here, but have some ideas for questions that you're ready to be asked. Yeah, even on Podmatch, we ask for ideas for titles. I don't know any host that's ever taken those directly, but what it does is helps them say, okay, I understand that Dave talks about podcasting. Like if you don't have some sort of frame of reference, most hosts are going to go do their research. You don't want them doing research and finding something from a long time ago that's not really what you want to talk about anymore, right? If you're going to get on a podcast and it's to grow your show, you want it to be in line with that. Before Podmatch was a thing, I was getting on shows as a guest and everyone was asking me about my aerospace job. It's not what I wanted to talk about. If you went to my LinkedIn, that's what it was about, right? And if you went to other places, like that's what it was. Without giving a host a direction, they're gonna go for it, right? Most hosts like to do a little bit of research, and if they're doing their research, they find something that's interesting to them, and you don't give them direction, they're just gonna go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I got one of the best pitches ever. I did a show where I just tried to keep my opinion out. I'm like, here's some facts about audio. Here's some facts about video. Here's some more facts, and in some cases, video was better. In other cases, audio outperformed video 15-1 in one instance, and blah, blah, blah. And I had somebody reach out and they said, hey, I listened to your episode and I was an audio podcaster and I started doing video, and they had like graphs and charts. It was Thomas Umstadt Jr. from authormedia.com. And he said, if you ever want to talk again about video, I think this is a viewpoint that you didn't touch on. And it was immediately yes, come on my show. This is amazing. So it proved he listened to the show, and then he had actual data like, hey, your episode was all about data and facts. I have more data and facts. Do you want to share mine? And I was like, yes, I do. And it proved that A, they listened to the show. B, he wasn't about, I'm so great, look at me. It was like, hey, here's how this can also educate your audience. So he was really focusing on my audience, which is kind of what we should be doing, is how can I bring value, to Alex's audience because he's the host. And so I saw that and I was like, oh, I need to take like a video of this and screen, like, this is how you pitch me. Do this. Don't pitch the plumber that doesn't have a podcast to my show, because I'm not talking about plumbing. That doesn't work for me. So yeah,
it's so good. It makes me think. The other day I had somebody reach out, and they're like a New York Times bestselling author. They've released a number of books, had a lot of achievements, and they emailed me. They're not on Podmatch or anything like that. They're like, I don't understand this podcasting thing. Why am I not getting invited to be on shows? And I was like, well, where are you like asking to be on shows? Like, I'm not. I'm waiting. And I'm like, I don't know, because a great example. If this guy who had all that data just posted on social media, one, you may have never seen it, but you may not have invited him on. You might have just been like, well, I just posted
Right.
this. It seems kind of general, right? But I think for people that are hearing this and you're like, okay, I do want to get on shows. We talked about the profile. You got to have some sort of profile that you can link to, but then you got to be willing to do the outreach, and then please make the outreach good. But you got to be willing to what you get out of it's what you put into it. You got to be willing to say, I'm going to make the effort. I'm going to send the first form of contact. And like you said, I think what that great pitch you got it was what I think is step one, which is to lead with value.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to, but I'm wearing a shirt that says those words on it right now. I saw it as I was saying it, but I put it there because I remind myself, like, anytime I'm reaching out, I'm going to make sure I lead with value. That's the first thing. It wasn't like, hey, Dave, I just made this report. I've learned so much. I know more than anyone about this. I would love to talk about it on your show. Like right? It was like, hey, great episode. This is some extra things that maybe you hadn't covered yet. Like, I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, it was awesome. I was like, it literally, like, I almost heard like angels in the background, like, oh, and I was like, oh, this is, and it literally, it was like, I read it down, and the more I read, the more it was valuable. And I got to the bottom, saw who it was. I'm like, oh, I know that guy. And I was like, I instantly hit reply and put in my link for scheduling. I was like, let's make that happen, buddy. And so
that's so good. Yeah. I haven't had a good pitch in a while, and that's terrible to say, but it's been a long time since I feel like I've had a good one come through. Yeah,
I had someone pitched Podpage yesterday because they work with other restaurants, and I went, well, I don't know if you're aware of this, but we're not a restaurant. So
Brendan didn't tell you guys are doing a full pivot.
Tone, try the linguine. Yeah, exactly. Well, the other thing, and this might be edit point 1, are you still accepting people for your network?
I am, yes.
Okay,
yeah.
Well, then we should talk about your network.
Yeah. I go ahead.
Well, I'm curious because I know you've kind of put out a call like, hey, we're starting a network. And I was like, oh, I should go see what he's doing over there. And then I never did. So what is the network? Why are you doing it? Why should someone join your network? Just give us the whole spiel.
Yeah. And thanks for bringing this up. It started just as an idea. Like, I had a few podcasters. I say a few, I think there was like 25 podcasters or something like that. They were all like, we were in like a group chat, and it was just people that were using Podmatch. And many of them were posting like, hey, I'm looking to join a network, and like, where do we go? And others were like, ooh, that'd be cool. Like, how do we do this? And so I just asked, I'm like, hey, I know a few network people. What are you looking for out of a network? And interestingly enough, the only common thing they all said is community. That was every single one of them said community. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. And then they just said some sort of like prestige or getting recognized somehow for it. Like, they wanted just to be known for it. So it's like, okay, community, and I want people to see that I'm part of a network. And so, like, those being the top 2 things were very fascinating to me. And beyond that, there was like monetization ideas, growth ideas, education, right? Those more normal type of things you'd suggest, but not all of them said that. And so I put it out to more people. We made like a small, I guess, just form, like using Google Forms, and just like asked. I think I sent it to 100 shows and just said that, hey, if there was a podcast network, what would you want? And it literally almost mirrored the data exactly. Everyone said community. Everyone said some sort of recognition for being in it. And then it was like a mix between monetization and, there was 3 things. It was monetization, listenership growth, and automations, like streamlining the process of the show. And that was virtually it. There was a few like random things, but like not that really had much merit. And so I kind of went out and started looking for networks that might fit that type of thing. Like, okay, I'll go. I talked to a couple people, but it wasn't really the right fit, and they wanted control of the shows, and I didn't feel comfortable sending people somewhere like that. And then I just started thinking, like, maybe I should start something. And I don't know if you know this, Dave, but maybe you do. But you have an episode about like networks, launching a network, and that was what I ended up there. That's where I ended up, and that was ultimately gave me the decision to say, you know what, we're going to go ahead and do this, because I listened to the pros and cons from you and a bunch of people that I have nothing but like the utmost respect for in podcasting, talk about like pros and cons. And so we decided to launch a network. And I think the better way to say it would be, it's more of a collaborative, because we're not doing ad buys together. I have no control over people's content. They're not like, they don't have to submit it to us first. It's just a way they have community and a way that they can get recognized for it. So like podmatch.com/network shows all the shows, so you can see them all. Shows all the shows, displays all the shows. That's how you say that. Displays all the shows. And then if you go to their individual Podmatch profiles, it says they're a Podmatch Podcast Network member. And people are really happy with that. And so since then, we've just been doing educational pieces every month. about monetization, show growth, and automations, and people are really loving it.
That is beyond fascinating to me, because I think I don't think people always start podcasting to make money, but so many people, and I kind of, I get it, but I'm kind of sad about this. Like, they feel their show isn't legit until they get a sponsor. And so when you say kind of recognition, or at least I can say, oh, I'm on a network, I'm like, you know what, that makes total sense. And there was a movie out about 5 months ago about this female boxer in the Olympics back in the 80s. And she gets home. She won a gold medal. She was like ridiculously young, and she's just dropping everybody. She's an amazing boxer. I wish I could remember her name. And she gets home and she's expecting to be on the Wheaties box because, I'm the youngest, blah, blah, blah. Great story. She was in Detroit and pulled herself up, and there's just nothing. Why? Because female boxing in the 80s is not what it is today. And I think it was her agent or somebody said, well, like, what's the deal? Is it the money? Is it the recognition? And she screams, money is recognition. And I was like, that's interesting. So I think sometimes that's why people want to sponsor, not because they want I just made, I think $5.23 on Red Circle, not sure where I'm going to spend it all, but, I think it's that kind of recognition that, like, hey, I'm legit. And I think being in a network with other people just shows that, hey, I'm not just some guy in his bedroom. I'm taking this, even if it's just a hobby, it's a serious hobby. When I was in a band, we knew we were never moving to Nashville, but we wanted to be the best band in Akron, Ohio. And if I do say so myself, I think we were at times. So, it's a serious hobby. Is that kind of, how do you classify the people that are joining? Is it all over the place, or?
Yeah, no, I think that's the best way to describe it. And for me, I'm big on validation through data. Like, I love to talk to people, but I want to see the data. And to date, I think we've had, I don't know how long ago we launched. I'm sorry. I think it's been under a year, but it's something close to those lines. And just given like the failure rate in podcasting, the expectation was that something like 30% of people would be done podcasting, they'd be out of it. And it was kind of the thought, like, just like if we follow the industry average, I think we've had 2 people leave the network since starting. And if you become inactive, it just kind of quietly removes you and stuff, like if you're not producing your show, because I don't want shows that are from 2015 and haven't produced an episode since. But like, they're in a network, right? It's like, no, You're not doing anything, right? So they're all active shows. But that showed me that, like, yes, these people, sure, many of them are hobbyists. And I don't say that in a bad way at all.
No.
I think being a hobbyist podcaster is absolutely the way to go for as long as you possibly can. It's a serious hobby. They take it very seriously. And many of these people, like, I'm looking at their downloads increasing. I'm looking at their ability to podcast well, to build systems. Listen, if they can have a full-time job and podcast, like, that says something about them. Like, that's impressive. And so, yeah, we're just seeing that they're taking it very seriously. I think you worded it really well. And it's just the fact that, like, someone recognizes the fact that they're just, like you said, not in their room, just podcasting because that's what everyone does, right? Like, no, they're for real, and they have a real purpose behind it.
Well, and I think it goes back to people that, in a way, serve their audience. But I mean, whatever, 20 years ago, I wish I could find this clip. It's in one of my very first episodes. I said, hey, I think podcasting is going to change the world. And I think the people that get behind the mic, that actually, even if it's just making people laugh, you're changing the world. And sometimes you're helping people, learn how to crochet or make, pizza better, or whatever it is your how-to is, or how to deal with parents or kids, whatever it is. You're changing the world. And that, to me, is, I think, something that I'm going to guess is part of your network, maybe, that you see a lot of people doing that.
Yes. I'd love it if you could find that clip. I don't mean to, like, add extra work to you, but yeah. I would love to hear that. And I'd actually like to share that, because I think that it's an understatement that has become true. And so, yeah, absolutely. The people that are podcasting this network, part of the applications, you ask them, like, why do you want to join? And occasionally the people will be like, I want to make money. And typically I'm like, well, let's dig in a little deeper. Like, what is that? Like, how much money are we talking here? Right? Like, what are you looking to do? Yeah. But most of them, it's like, I want to get this message out. And listen, I am very attracted to passion. Anytime I hear, like, someone who's, like, passionate, you can hear it in their voice, you can see it in the way they write. That's the person I'm, like, instantly like, yep, I definitely want you. Like, for sure. That's the type of show we want here. And some of them they're all over the place. We have comedy shows to business shows to literally talk about anything with anybody type of shows, right? So they're all over the place, which I don't mind that at all, as long as the person doing it is serious. and they have a real reason for doing it, I'm very happy with that.
Very cool. And again, what's the website? The podmatch.com/network?
Yep, correct. That's it.
Beautiful. Excellent. Well, dude, I want to thank you for your time.
Yeah.
For coming out. And like I said, you're a different kind of guy. And that, again, that just shows you're like, hey, I love the fact that you've done this a few times. You're like, hey, that's a good idea. Let's see who's doing it. Oh, wait, nobody is. Or maybe I can do this in a different way. I would say better, but that sounds presumptions. But you know what I mean? You mean better, but you'll say different, that kind of thing. And you've just done that. And I love the fact that, you know, I remember the first time you were like, oh, I'm going to start paying people if you're a Podmatch affiliate and you do this and that, like, and I forget how many gazillions of dollars you've now paid podcasters for using your service. And I'm like, yeah, that's just not the norm, you know. Or when you went through and did a cleansing, what would you call it? A purge?
I called it a purge. I now realize that sounds a little harsh. I didn't mean for it to.
Have you ever seen the movie The Purge? There's a couple of them. They're spooky and gory and weird. And I was like, I don't think he means the movie The Purge.
No, no, I haven't heard of those. And that now makes it sound even worse. I didn't hurt anybody. I promise. Nothing weird happened. We just deleted them from our platform. I did just look. Our Pod Value Initiative is what we call that. That's where we pay podcast hosts to, one, share about it, but also if they're just interviewing guests on the platform. If they're interviewing guests on the platform, following the system, we give a cut of our profit. So it's just right now it's 700,000, just over that number. Goal is to hit 1 million before the end of 2025, which I would absolutely love. Like, giving back is central to my belief as a follower of Jesus, but also just in business. I think it's important to give back when people are good to you.
Cha-ching. That's not a that's a little more than a Happy Meal. So that's a beautiful thing. So Alex Sanfilippo, thank you so much. Everybody, if you haven't already, check out Podmatch. I'll have links in the show notes or under the video, wherever you're watching or listening to this. And thank you so much, my friend.
Thanks again. I appreciate it.